The thing that became very significant in our lives, my life particularly, was Bud Hinkson, one of the true pioneers of the faith. And he was always, please come help me here, please come help me there. And this time, it was the Iron Curtain. It was closed, Eastern Europe, Soviet Union and all, and that's where Bud was pioneering, laying the groundwork. So we went to Romania first, where Bud trained us what to do, not to do, how to operate in behind the Iron Curtain, all these things. First trip into that section of the Iron Curtain. And after 3 days of training, the night before we were ready to leave, I can still picture it, he handed us 3 sheets of paper, each one, in a small group of us, because we were going to split up to where there was only 2 or 3 in a little team. You had to travel so undercover. He said, memorize these directions tonight, because when you fly tomorrow, you cannot take them on the plane with you. And I said, well, what do you mean? Do we know who we're meeting in there? There'll be somebody there, and your direction is going to tell you how you identify them. Okay, well, how about if we miss each other or we get delayed? He says, you're going to have to trust the Lord for that. I said, well, I don't mind trusting the Lord, but it's not all bad to have a backup system. What do you do if? He says, there is none. So we knew all of a sudden, hey, we're getting ready to enter into something here a little bit different than what we've been used to. So we got on the plane and dropped into Bucharest. And I remember I was supposed to get in a taxi, go over to the train station, and find the big eye on the side of the wall and just stand there, but be there by 5 o'clock, because somebody's going to come walk by with a little cassette player in their hand. And when you see somebody come walk up to you and they have that cassette player, that's who you're to follow. All right? Thousands of people getting on and off the train in the middle of this big city. And man, I just stood there. I mean, I kept watching everybody's hand that went by and nobody was showing up. It was almost 5. So I said, well, we'll see now whether this is going to work or not. Before long, here comes an American. He just looked at me, and all he said was, follow me. He turned, started walking out. All I did was followed him, and he did not get out of my sight, trust me. This was what was the condition that our staff were working in these countries. And we go in and help train very quietly, very much under radar. And so then we would go in the evening, and their people would come. And it would be maybe 25 people. You're not talking about hundreds of people. It had to be very small. Churches were very small. But we had to be careful even the route we took to walk to the church, to help out the dear, dear people that love the Lord, living in paranoia like I'd never seen before. And their hearts of the people were wide open. But the first trip in there was just determining, how can we help you? What are your needs? How can we come train? So we were laying the groundwork for this. In fact, probably my second or third trip in there, we actually, 2 of us, took a train down to Latvia. Knew no one, no contacts. We wanted to go in and find out what would it require to see if we could open this country. Of course, as you know, during those days, the government tells you what hotel you're going to stay in. And we went down, and I always found out one of the best things to do when you're going into a new city, get on a city tour and find out what they want you to see. What do they value? And so I was trying to get an appointment with the Archbishop of the Lutheran Church, because that seemed to be the strength of the churches there. But how do you get to the Archbishop when you don't know anybody? So then we watched very carefully how we got from that church there back to where we finished the tour. And as soon as we got back there, we walked right across the other side of the street to the church, to the cathedral that it was in. And everything was shut tight. The church, the whole thing. We literally walked around and checked every door all the way around this big cathedral. And the very last door, a little door in a corner, wasn't even the door that you normally would enter in, happened to have a crack in it. It was open. So we opened it and walked in. And the whole church had scaffolding. They were remodeling, no lights, so it was dark. And we said, well, there's nobody here. And all of a sudden we heard a couple of voices upstairs. And there were 2 painters leaning up against the wall talking with each other. So I walked over there and I said, so how long have you been a painter? Oh, this is just a part-time job. I'm a seminary student. Oh, you're in the seminary, huh? The Lutheran seminary. Ah. I said, well, when you guys finish your day today, what are you doing this evening? He said, well, I'm going to my church, which is across the river. I said, well, what would be the possibility of us going with you? He said, oh, I'd love to have you go with me. Then we go to his church, and it was his pastor who was the assistant archbishop and knew the archbishop very well. He says, the next morning, you can meet him at such and such a time. So we walk into the archbishop's office, and he got so excited about training that we were talking about. He said, when can you come back and start training all the Lutheran pastors throughout the country of Latvia? And he embraced us and couldn't wait for us to get back. Opened up the whole country. And that was the beginning. Had no contacts. The work of the Holy Spirit in connecting where He is wanting to go. And the lessons that I think in going into these countries where they're closed, you're having to trust God, you want to stay under radar, watch and see how He opens doors. And it was almost crazy how we would meet people, and it would be a key contact that led us back over here, that opened the door back here, and we knew nobody. That's the Holy Spirit. It's supernatural. As we think about how do you touch every man, woman, and child with the love of Christ so they can hear it and see it, there lies the key. God already has started a work and has gone before us. And how do we follow the leading of the Holy Spirit and watch Him raise up the people as we walk? Same thing in the Soviet Union, it's the same thing in America. And God is at work today.